I am so excited to be here today. First, I just want to thank all the presenters today. I've learned so much in just one day, and all the presentations were great. But I'm just really excited to be here because I get to talk about one of my favorite people, and that's Dottie Schroeder. So I started this research a couple years ago, so 2 years ago actually, when I was in graduate school at U of I in Champaign. And it's kind of funny though to think, like I was thinking today, like, I am so new into this community because I had just started doing this research on Dottie and the All-American League. And when I talk about Dottie and all the women part of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, whenever I talk about them to my family, my friends, or just anyone, I always tell them that this research is just such a blessing because Dottie and all these women, they were remarkable women and they inspire me every day. And Dottie's story though, I feel like I relate to her because for me, I was an athlete. I competed in track and field for 13 years and throughout college as a thrower, so I understand what it's like to be a female athlete and also an Illinois girl too, like Dottie. But today though, I kind of want to give you guys a brief background about who Dottie is, but then also talk about the upcoming exhibit that will be coming out next fall in fall of 2025. And so you guys get the opportunity to see some of the artifacts that the Champaign County History Museum has now in their collection. Now, some of you guys may know about Dottie, but she was known as the famous shortstop Dottie, or Hubba Hubba Shortstop. I love that nickname. But Dottie was known to be one of the best defensive players in the All-American League. And she also was one of a handful of players in the league that is loosely based on Jenna Davis's Dottie Hinson in A League of Their Own. But Dottie, she was no ordinary shortstop. Her quick reflexes, her natural sense, and her strong arm made her a valuable asset to every team she played for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And for example, during her rookie season, she had the best fielding percentage of all shortstops. I mean, that's a pretty remarkable number for someone who was just 15 years old at that time. Now, I think a lot of us know who Charlie Grimm is, the Chicago Cubs manager, and you see this in all the newspaper articles about Dottie. But then this is what he said about her: if she were a man, she'd be worth $50,000 to a major league club. I mean, that's amazing for someone to say about her, especially a man, like a Chicago Cubs manager. Now, I've read through so many different newspapers the last year or so, and I'm so thankful to have all these newspapers digitized. But these two articles were a couple of my favorites, though, because they really show you who Dottie was as a player. So, she was the showgirl of the league. When Schroeder has her sense of timing all set, she'll provide the most beautiful performance of graceful fielding that any fan would witness. And also, Schroeder is the idol of the fans in the American League. I mean, just those two articles, though, that tells you a lot about who Dottie was and how talented she was playing baseball. Now, I think a lot of us know the story of how the All-American League came to be. So Philip K. Wrigley, he was the one that founded the league. But he had this idea of bringing these women in, and he wanted women who were beautiful, but then also could play like a man. But Dottie, she fit that idea. She was beautiful, and I love this photo of her senior portrait that was taken in 1946. I mean, she was beautiful. So many people took pictures of her. She was everywhere in the newspapers and the magazines, so everyone knew her, and even fans, like the kids, would just flock to her to get her autograph. In a way, she kind of reminds me of Caitlin Clark a little bit, just that Clark effect. So this is like the Schroeder effect, maybe. Now, I might be jumping the gun right now because, Dottie, she holds several records. Even just looking at her stats, they're amazing. And she's also in several different Hall of Fames, and she also has a photo of herself at the Baseball Hall of Fame. But for me as a researcher, though, or historian, to me, this is just general information that anyone can find on the internet, which is true. And at the time, though, I was thinking to myself, who is Dottie? Why did she play baseball? Why did she join the league? And like, so there was just all these different questions that were coming into my mind. So I wanted to dig deeper. And I just want to say this picture on the right, I love, this is one of my favorite photos that someone had created. But I call this photo the Queen of the Midwest. So it's one of my favorites. And then also her hometown has a sign of her that says hometown of Dottie Schroeder, Dottie. So I'm really glad that Sadorus has recognized her. So let's just kind of go from the beginning though. So she's a small town farm girl, born in Champaign, Illinois, also raised in Sadorus her whole life. She had lived there. Her father's Walter Sr. and Ida Schroeder. She has two brothers, an older brother named Walter Jr. He also is a World War II veteran. And then Donald, or a lot of people called him Don, which is her twin brother. So she was really close with her family. And hello.
We gotcha. You back?
Yeah,
Okay. The
sorry.
last thing we heard was you were talking about her brothers.
Okay, sorry about that.
All good. This happens all the time.
Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying though, let me just go back real quick. So her brothers, you can imagine them playing baseball here on the farm, and that's what she did growing up. But so her father and her uncle Al, so Walter's brother, they actually played baseball. So her father managed and played a semi-pro baseball team in Champaign, while her uncle was also like a renowned athlete. And I really want to do more research to find out like some of the teams that these guys played for. But really, these two, they're the ones that coached Dottie. They taught her like the whole game of baseball. Now, Dottie and her family, were a very religious family. They grew up in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. This is a great photo of her and her twin brother Don at their confirmation in 1942. So that's one of the photos that we have in our collection. And just to give you an idea what the church she went to, so this church is not in Sadorus anymore. It got burnt down. So they had a dedication in 1950. So this is the church that Dottie would have gone to the rest of her life. And I actually visited the church a couple years ago. And I also belonged to the Lutheran church, and I was able to take communion with her cousins. So that was a pretty surreal experience to do that there. But before Dottie joined the league, she also was on a 4-H fast pitch softball team, and she also played for a team called the Illinois Commercial College team. So she was playing softball during this time, between the time when she was about 11 up to when she was 13 years old. Now, tryouts. So, as I said, we all know the story about Wrigley. So, you know, the men go out to fight in the war during World War II. Wrigley, he sends scouts out through the United States and Canada to recruit women to play baseball. And he wanted wholesome all-American athletes who could play a man's sport. And originally, originally the name was the All-American Girls Softball League, which was a hybrid of fast pitch and softball and baseball. Now, Walter Sr., he read an article from the Chicago Tribune about tryouts for the All-American Girls Softball League. And he knew Dottie was very talented, so he encouraged her to try out. So he and Dottie, they took a train down to St. Louis, and at the age of 15 years old, Dottie became the league's youngest player after performing really well at Sportsman Park in St. Louis in 43. And 65 players 65 players tried out in St. Louis, and Dottie was one of the two that was sent to Chicago. So 280 girls showed up to Wrigley Field and 60 were chosen, and Dottie was one of those 60. So I was so excited when we found this, but we actually have Dottie's very first contract that was signed by her in 1943. So, I mean, she's an OG player. I mean, and I didn't even say this earlier, but she's the only player of those 600 players in this league that had played all 12 seasons of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. So, but here though, there's a photo of her and her uncle Al. Her dad died within her first season playing for her first team. So her uncle Al, this is a picture of them signing her second contract in the All-American League. So Dottie played for 4 teams. She played for South Bend Blue Sox, Kenosha Comets, Fort Wayne Daisies, and Kalamazoo Lassies. So she was really known to play in Fort Wayne. She had played there the longest of the four. She played there for about 5 years. And, you know, Fort Wayne, they did an amazing job just promoting these girls. Like Dottie did an interview or survey, excuse me, talking about how, you know, Fort Wayne, they recorded or they did live radio shows, you know, at the games, talking about the girls and just covering everything. So the community in Fort Wayne, they knew about these girls and they knew who Dottie was. But this document, this is very, I was so glad that I was able to find this. But as I said, you know, Fort Wayne was Dottie's home for 5 years, and she got traded to play for Kalamazoo. But this is actually the contract that Kalamazoo sent to her when she was traded. And Dottie, she was very, very upset with what happened because she loved playing for Fort Wayne and she loved the fans. And this is just an interview with Susan Johnson. And Dottie said, I bawled my eyes out. I've been with Fort Wayne the longest time in my baseball career. And at that time, you're crushed. I didn't want to leave my teammates, but all these things are for a purpose because you try a little bit harder against the team that traded you. But you know what? She actually, proved them wrong, got her quote revenge, and she won the playoffs with the Kalamazoo Lassies in 1944 while playing against Fort Wayne. So Dottie did an amazing job that year, just leading her team to win those playoffs against the team that traded her. Now, for me, like as a historian, I noticed too her batting average was really low, and in all the articles, newspaper articles that I found, you know, they are talking about Dottie not being really great at batting. But you know, there's a couple things we have to realize though. You know, at the beginning, you know, the bases were closer, the ball was bigger. Of course, the pitches are going to be faster because the bases are so close. So the hitting, those stats, they weren't great at that time for everyone. But then also, like I said, Dottie was 14, 15 years old when she started. So of course, she would be getting better each year as she was getting older. She would be getting stronger. And by the time she was doing the math right, 25, 26, I mean, this was her average in 1954. So, I mean, that's pretty remarkable how much she improved. And, you know, and there's also articles of her and her brother Don, you know, practicing at the farm. So she was practicing every year, just trying to get better. Now, and Dottie, she also was part of the Bill Allington's All-American traveling team. So when 1954, when the All-American League folded, Bill Allington, I think a lot of us know, he was a successful manager for the Rockford Peaches, but also a former manager for the Cubs baseball team. He put together his own team with like a lot of the all-stars from the All-American League, and Dottie was one of them. And I mean, these teams, they would have played against men from 1955 through 1958, and Dottie played all those years. But by 1957, Dottie had played over 1,500 career games. And there's even an article of Mr. Wrigley going to one of those games, and he couldn't believe how amazing Dottie was. Like, she just got better each year, and she was just phenomenal from what he said about her. Now, themes for the upcoming exhibit. So the exhibit, it's gonna be opening in the fall 2025. So that's going to give us enough time because the collection is very large. But the ideas for this exhibit, so we're going to start with Dottie's early years, Dottie's time playing professional baseball, but then also we want to promote the league, but then also inspire future generations. So like when I want Dottie, so like if Dottie could do it, so can I. That's what I want those kids to say when they go into that exhibit. So the collection, though, like I said, it's pretty big. So if I remember right, 2023, summer of 2023, we met with the Schroeder family. And I think you even talked about earlier today about, how we need to encourage people to donate these collections because maybe some of them don't know how significant they or how important they are. But the Schroeder family, they had collected everything of Dottie's um, and let me think. So, and everything of Dottie's, including like scrapbooks, programs, photos, and I mean, a lot of this stuff people have never seen before. So, for example, to your right, there is a photo. There was an
Because I had
exhibit.
trouble getting in, so I'm just gonna keep it on because if there's a break for like an hour and change the movie.
There was an exhibit done in 1998 about Dottie at the Cooperstown or Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. And then also we have her original patch that was on her
To the headphones.
uniform. And then also we have the patches that were on her uniform. So like her Daisy's patch that was on the front of her uniform. And also, this is amazing that she did this, but she bronzed her shoe and her glove, and we actually have that. So we're really excited to display that for the public to see. So really glad that she did that when she was alive. We also have her All-Star trophy. She was an All-Star player. And then we also have her playoff championship trophy in 1954. So I'm sure she took a lot of pride in that trophy after winning against Fort Wayne Daisies. This is pretty unique too. So we also have this sign that Dottie somehow got. I'm sure someone gave it to her when she was playing for the South Bend Blue Sox. But we have this sign, and we're planning on displaying it in the exhibit too. But it's really fragile though. But yeah, this is an amazing find though that the museum has. But as I mentioned, scrapbooks. These scrapbooks are remarkable. I've talked to a historian for the All American League, and she said these are probably the best scrapbooks I've ever seen. So, but these scrapbooks cover all 12 years. So when you think about it, Dottie, she's the only player to play all 12 years. But you remember the rules were changing each year. And so you're kind of seeing like how the league is starting to change each year. Like and ownership and just in players too. And this is just gives you a little more like what's in these scrapbooks. So we have newspaper clippings, we have notes, brochures, magazines. So to your left, this came from Sports Life magazine. They took pictures of Dottie in the shower, for example. Then we have pictures of her and Jimmy Fox. I think a lot of us know who Jimmy Fox was. So, I mean, it's just amazing how detailed these scrapbooks are. I mean, Dottie had seen it all, really. And even just with the modification of softball to fast pitch baseball. Now, and the person, I really want to thank is Don Schroeder, her brother, her twin brother. I love this photo of them together. I mean, he was the one that put this all together. And, these two, they were just thick as thieves. They were very close. And Don, I mean, he loved Dottie so much, and he was her biggest fan. And to make all these 12 scrapbooks, I mean, it's just amazing. Just in the condition they're in, it's just amazing. And we also have ball, so you're kind of seeing, the modification from softball down to baseball. So Dottie had collected balls from the league too. And this is amazing. This is one of my favorites too, but we have the cover of the Parade magazine. Dottie is the only woman baseball player to be on Parade magazine. Her teammate Katie Hortzman had made a comment in an interview. I mean, probably Dottie's greatest trait was her kindness. When people in the media talked about how great she was, Dottie would try to change the subject of conversation. She was very humble, and Dottie was very humble. Now, this is the Champaign County History Museum. This is actually one of the oldest buildings, or I think it is the oldest building in Champaign, Illinois. And there's a small museum in here. So I'm a local history librarian in Springfield, Illinois. So I kind of just want to give you quickly the step-by-step of how to access this collection. So what you guys have seen today, you can actually see it online because everything is digitized. And that's amazing to know that we can do that. So you'll go to the champaigncountyhistory.org. You'll click our artifact collection. And this page will come up. You'll click search object collection. Hit key search, and then I always type in Schroeder, and then you'll get all the results from the Schroeder collection. That's what it's called. And this is the object record. And so we talked about these amazing scrapbooks. You guys have access to these scrapbooks. You can actually upload these as a PDF and look through all these scrapbooks. So that's amazing with what we were able to do for the public. Now, actually 3 weeks ago, I went to the All-American reunion in Cincinnati, and I'm actually associate member, and I had amazing time there, and I've talked to all the ladies there. But Katie Hortzman, though, I mentioned her earlier, she was really close friends with Dottie, and she had actually lived with Dottie in Sodoris, after playing baseball, because she was getting ready. She was studying in Champaign to be a medical librarian. And when I was telling Katie about this upcoming exhibit and just all the research I've done, she just looks at me and she's like, it's about time. Like, Katie cared about Dottie, and she has this, she has so much joy when she talks about Dottie. So, but yeah, I just want to thank you guys though, and I really hope that you guys take advantage of what we have right now at the Champaign County History Museum. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. This is really awesome. Like, a lot of folks are really excited about all of these artifacts, original artifacts, the extensive collection. Like, this is really neat to see. So a couple questions while going through the chat here, while folks put their other questions in the chat. Something that came up, was Dottie in the movie A League of Their Own?
No, she was not. She was asked to be, but I found out at the reunion, a lot of the players that you see playing, they were actually the younger ones. So probably, because like Katie, for example, was 6, 7 years younger than Dottie. So you would see like the younger players playing than like the older ones. It's like I call them like the OG players. So like when between like 43 to 55. But Dottie was asked, but and I don't know if this is true or not, but I don't think she was the biggest fan of Madonna at the time. She's like, why would I want to be in a movie with Madonna? So that's what I was told.
That is kind of a great answer.
Yeah.
So was she in the documentary about the league?
No. So I had asked, and during that time her mother wasn't doing really well. So she was taking care of her, but she wasn't in the documentary.
Okay. Were the items in the collection, were they donated to the Historical Society, or are they just on loan from the family?
So it's pretty half and half. So there are items that are donated, but then there's also items that are loaned right now for the exhibit. But pretty much everything online right now that's digitized, like that's the whole collection. So, and all that will always be online for people to see.
Awesome. So from the items in the collection, did you get the sense that Dottie was a sentimental person, or was this like Dawn or another family member who was collecting these things about Dottie? Like, kind of who was the driver of that?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think both. Dottie, she was so grateful for the league because, she had opportunities that she would never get. She didn't play. Like, for example, like traveling. Like, I didn't realize this until a year ago, but I mean, they trained in Cuba and like internationally. So like, there's all these photos that Dottie took while she was in Havana, Cuba. But Don though, I mean, I I have so many. I just respect Dawn so much because like I said, she was really close with her family. And I just think they were just so proud of her and just how much she accomplished at such a young age. And they really believed in her. And I really think that she was successful because she had the support of her family and friends back in Sodoris, Illinois.
That's cool. That's really neat. Again, looking for questions in the chat. But until then, I get to keep going. So you as a researcher, what is the reaction that you get when you tell either people in the industry or friends, family, people you meet? What's the reaction that you get when you say, I'm researching a woman's baseball player?
Honestly, like, no matter if they're interested in sports or whatever, they're always like interested. Like they have like a face of like, what? Like, tell me more. Like that's been my interaction with people. But like when I, for example, when I just talk about Dottie though, just the joy that comes out of a lot of people when I talk to them, like they're just all excited about this. Cause a lot of them, like they've seen A League of Their Own, but, or then there's been some that haven't seen the movie. So now they're just all interested in trying to learn more about like the league, but then also Dottie. But I mean, that's really much like my interaction with people. It's always been pure excitement, really.
I get the sense that they kind of also feed off of your excitement for the subject. Like
Yeah.
when you talk about this, it's clear that you're really into it. You have a passion for the subject. So I think that's probably a little bit of both there. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, and I don't want to be sound cheesy or anything, but Dottie and just the women, like especially the women I met at the conference or the reunion, I mean, they really have changed my life. I mean, I've met so many amazing people along this journey, and Dottie's story though, like I just feel like I relate to her, like I know her, and for us being Illinois girls, like I can relate to her. Like I come from a small town too, so I feel like I know her really well, and she died a couple years before I was born, so I really wish I would have met her.
this is definitely the audience for being cheesy. We all are a little bit. So yeah. So how long will the exhibit be up? Do you know?
Um, I do not know right now. I was just in Champaign a couple weeks ago, so but I'll be helping. I don't work in Champaign. I'm a local history librarian in Springfield, Illinois.
Ah,
But I do try to go to Champaign a lot to do research, or I've gathered some things to get to the collection. But I don't know exactly. I know it's going to be more than a year, but I just don't know the exact time. But yeah.
so then what's next for you on the research front?
Honestly, like I can really see myself writing a book someday. That's just how I feel about it. Um, like, and I was kind of telling that to a lot of the people at the reunion. Like, my top priority right now is to get the exhibit done, but I just really think I can write a book about Dottie because I mean, her story is just so inspiring, and I think her story deserves to be out there.
Definitely some support in the chat for writing a book. And you would have a ton of material, right? Like 12 years in the league and so many scrapbooks to go through, and like there'd be a lot there for a book.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But the one thing though that I've had it's challenging because I didn't really mention much about her life after baseball,
Mhm.
but she did not talk about her time in the league, and I feel like we've seen that with a lot of the ladies that played. So like none of her family knew, or a lot of her family members didn't really know much about her time in the league. But then also her coworkers, she worked at Collegiate Cap and Gown in Champaign for 30 some years. But then when the movie came out, people were like, what? You played in the league? So, I mean, she kept it really hush hush, really. So that's been kind of like a challenge, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been really awesome.